I totally get that. I mean, I think it's good that you got your product management experience in there because you know how things shift and how to respond and react to it, which sounds like you've done a really great job. It's interesting, you bring up when you started within the real estate industry and the drive you had. And I think we've seen a little bit over the past few years sort of that loss of folks who, or I guess we should say maybe Gen Z, looking who are age appropriate now to potentially buy a home, and we're not seeing them buy as much. Or what we're seeing too is they are buying together. So roommates who go in and buy a house and then sort of use it as an investment where they sell off their portion to maybe a new roommate, which is quite interesting. It's like renting, but maybe making your money sooner than later.
You bring that up. That was actually my first idea was co-buying. It's a very limited space. There's a company called Divvy Homes that started in that space and then went on to change the model, and they raised a ton of capital. And I believe they shuttered recently, but so they're part of that PropTech bubble. But yeah, when you look at the macroeconomics of real estate, there's a significant fear that our children, the next generation, might not be homeowners because inventory is limited. And there's a couple things going on. Construction's way behind. It's been behind for a decade, and there's fears that it'll never catch up. So the amount of new homes we're building is limited. So that's only going to compound. The other side of it is investors, and especially institutional investors, even like going up to BlackRock, have become more aggressive when the market is prime for mass acquisition. So what that does is that limits the number of inventory available for first-time home buyers, thus increases the price and increases the barrier. So when you have high interest rates, right, it's all about timing. The average age of a first-time home buyer when I got into this industry over 10 years ago was about 28. Then it was stuck around 32 for a while. Now it's like 40. And it begs the question, when is that number going to stop increasing? And so that's a big part of our mission is like there's such huge transactional costs because the real estate transaction is so antiquated, so fragmented that you're seeing some of these large players like Rocket Mortgage, who just acquired Redfin, saying, hey, verticalization is a solution, a one-stop shop. Consumers like it. We can create cost efficiencies, and we can, the biggest challenge is doing that in a compliant manner, which has been really difficult for any one lender to do. And so, when I studied the trends and what's going on, let's go back to market research. It's like, wow, this is going to get harder and harder for people to own homes. And then when you think about the wealth gap that's already happening and the generational wealth gap, it's going to be a real big problem here. And it's an industry that moves slow, and these numbers move slow, but they're moving in a very specific direction. And so unless we innovate, it's going to be very hard for my daughter to buy a house. And that's not the world I want her to live in. So